from where you report in any office in SBI, the first thing they ask is which place, which caste, which community, which those days, not anymore. I've come from banking to capital markets. Everyone said, how do you move like that? I told them, fools rush in where angels fear to tread. Especially gender equality and gender pay equality, I found India is much better than the US.
It's a privilege to introduce you to a remarkable leader and accomplished professional in the banking and finance sector. Padmaja ma'am is the CEO and MD of NSDL and brings with her an impressive experience of over 3 decades in the industry. Starting her journey as a probationary officer with SBI in 1984, ma'am has held key assignments in India and the USA and has gathered a vast array of exposure in corporate lending, retail operations, digital banking, treasury, and international operations. In 2018, she was appointed as the MD and CEO of Indian Bank, where she successfully led the merger of Allahabad Bank into Indian Bank during the COVID pandemic. Padmaja ma'am's leadership skills were further recognized, and she was then appointed as the CEO and MD of NSDL and was also honored with the BFSI category award at the Business Today PwC India's Best CEO ranking. Ma'am, it is a great honor to have you
Thank
today
you.
at Masters Union.
It's my pleasure to be here.
So, ma'am, you graduated your BCom and immediately did your Masters in Commerce and Banking. So, did you decide that time itself that you want to get into the banking sector, or how was that journey like?
So those days, it's not like now when from 7th class you start thinking what will my son or daughter be and what is it. So we went through the paces. I was a science student basically until I joined BCom. The moment I, saw this science means a lot of zoology and a lot of dissections and all that, then I thought enough is enough and then switched to commerce. But the basic bank, joining a bank and taking this probationary officer exam came from my mother. She was educated. She was a graduate in those days, and she didn't work, but she was very ambitious for us. And we were 3 sisters. So she would go to banks and she would see these people sitting on the counters, white collar jobs, very nice, very polite, pleasant, nice atmosphere. So she was after us that, she found out how do you enter a bank. So that's how I got into this. Of course, studies, I was okay.
So you spent around 34 years in SBI Bank
yes.
across India and the globe. So what is the culture like domestically and globally? And did you notice any key differences in the culture?
So yes, I was in SBI right from 84, and SBI, I hope all of you know, has offices spread over India and abroad also. So every 3 years we would have a transfer. That is the first thing in SBI culture, that you need to keep on moving with your family to different places, different roles. And I was fortunate to have 2 assignments in the US. The first time was in Los Angeles. That was from 2001 to 2006. And they say genius is all about timing. And I ended up in Los Angeles immediately after the Trade Center collapse, 9/11 incident. So it was very gloomy and very dark and very negative sort of an economy at that time, but very soon it picked up. That's one thing about US. No one has the time to keep looking at what happened. They just move on and things again start happening. So that was the first assignment. The second assignment, I went back as the head of US operations for SBI, what they call the country head. And there I was there for 3 years, 2014 to 2017, very recently, almost 5 years back, I returned. So yes, you asked about the culture between India and the US. I think there are both positives and a little that US also. It's not that US is all sparkling, and India is not so good. In the beginning, yes, I was very surprised and very pleasantly surprised that the professionalism that comes with the roles in the US. No one bothers where you are coming from, whether you're married, whether you're what are your kids doing? These questions don't even come up, and that was such a refreshing feeling coming from where you report in any office in SBI. The first thing they ask is which place, which caste, which community. Those days. Now, not anymore. That was one thing I found very. There was no intrusive and personal freedom, personal privacy, very high. So on a individual front, I found it very. I was there alone with my kids. My husband was also in SBI, and he was not. I mean, both of us don't get posted there. So I was alone with my children, and it was quite a liberating environment to work. Professionally, yes, there was a lot of, they go by the individual accountability, individual freedom is there, but accountability is also there. Your email, your fax, your phone call, everything is you. Yeah, at that time in India, unless you sign a letter, you were free to write what you wanted. You can say what you want. But the account, I found that even credit documents, when you just send an email saying, yes, we are okay with this document, then it comes for the ultimate signature because they take it on face value until proven otherwise. The other thing I found is that there is nothing like a jugad. We in SBI also, I found that when the regulators came and pointed out something, which would take a lot of time to set right, especially technology and all this, AML issues that were there. Our team would feel okay. There were a mix of locals and also the people from India. They would feel okay. Within 2 days, we'll kuch kar denge. No, and then let the regulators go in the evening, and by the time they come back next day, it's all set. They can't find anything. It's working. Then that regulator once came to my room and said, Madam, I don't know what your people do, but I'm finding this again and again. Very, very serious issues we point out, but by the time we come back, it's all set. And for the life of us, we can't find where the issue was. And he said, I'm just giving you this feedback because for me, I can't write anything. It's working. But you might have to, you might look at it, you may take a look. So then I called our people. Of course, they had made some fixes, which later on, but that also goes down to the stage, to the concept of institution building. When you actually only address the real issues, you sort them out. Jugad is good, but Jugad can't be permanent. It has to be institutionalized into practices. So these were the main, I think, cultural issues or professional issues that I saw. The other part is, I think they're a bit rigid in their own way, especially gender equality and gender pay equality. I found India is much better than the US. Of course, SBI, we didn't have any problem anytime. It doesn't discriminate on gender. No public sector that way. Even private sector in India, I think doesn't. I mean, I'm to be proven wrong, but US, yes, I think that's a big issue on not only pay, even other ways of encouraging this, despite it being the most developed nation in the world. But there are issues there, and also I think the rigidity with which there is a very fragmented regulatory system there. I used to, as country head, I used to go to 9 regulators, like a pilgrimage every quarter. You go around to, because we have our operations in Illinois, in California, in New York, so all the state departments, and handling regulators. One regulator is tough enough. Handling 9 regulators was an issue, and that continues to this day, I guess.
In terms of processes, normal what SBI India follows versus in US, how are the processes like?
So I don't think there was much in common between SBI India and SBI US, because SBI US is a foreign banking operations. So that had to follow the guidelines of the US. In fact, the rule is that India or US guidelines, whichever is stricter.
Okay.
So you are, you
Still
have to follow
strict,
RBI,
yeah.
you have to follow FRB, FDIC, whatever, and the stricter of the two. So very tight regulatory control. And we were more into the wholesale banking with some retail, because these were deposits are insured there under FDIC. So they would do that safety and soundness examination. Products are similar to the US products in terms of. So we used to do those syndicated loans, the big loans to Dell or to the companies across the globe, and you would take a small portion of, say, 70 million, $100 million. So it was a very good learning in terms of what are all the corporate finance products that are available, what are the covenants these people put, into those loans? How do they monitor those loans? So that was technology help us there, but more than that, I think it was the diligence, the rigor with which they follow the rules. And no, ticking the boxes. We think it's very boring, but I think banking should be boring to keep it safe, and I think that's one thing I've seen there. Yeah.
Nice. Could you throw some light over the massed public sector mergers in 2021, like something
Yeah.
around that? Be really helpful.
So yeah, it's you're calling it mass merger. Yeah, there were, I think, three main groups of mergers, of which one of those was Anchor Bank was Indian Bank, the other one was Union Bank of India, and the other one PNB. So among all these mergers, the difference was that PNB and the Union Bank were already big banks, and the other two banks that were merging into them were quite small in comparison. So there is a big brother, and there are these chaps who will go and have to merge with them. They have no choice. No one has any choice in this, because it's all government ownership, and government, as an owner, you are all doing business classes. So if you have stakes in 10 companies, you will find to see whether you really need to have stakes in all these competing companies, and whether when all of them are doing almost the same business. So those inefficiencies were there. Some were doing good, some were not doing good. So that is how the government came up with this idea. So in our case, the difference was that Indian Bank and Allahabad Bank both were of the same size. In fact, Allahabad Bank was bigger in terms of number of branches, number of people, balance sheet. Balance sheet was same. Strength of balance sheet Indian Bank had, and that's why it was chosen as the anchor bank. But culture-wise, there was no. It was chalk and cheese. Geography also. The Allahabad Bank was in the north and east, and Indian Bank is in the south and some mostly west also.
Correct.
So I think the mergers have played out quite well. In the beginning, all of us were very apprehensive, but the government gave a lot of support. Reserve Bank gave a lot of support. And I think people saw the writing on the wall that we can't live with inefficient systems any longer. And you have to merge for the strength of the balance sheet. And even the people, when I was in Indian Bank, I used to go for town halls to make sure the Allahabad Bank people understand the need, because there was a lot of bitterness and there was a lot of resistance. No one, and Calcutta is the headquarters, so you can imagine the kind of protests and the kind of resistance that comes up. But when you sell to them that this is for your career, and if the owner is there and the owner is deciding, if you are in a private sector, the owner says something, you'll follow. But public sector, everyone is an owner. So we need to improve the thing. So we were selling it as a career progression for people, a better balance sheet, a better salaries, bonuses, whatever. So for the people, it was a very good bargain. At the end of the day, even for the bank, I think even Indian Bank gained, because there were so many synergies between the two banks.
And you steered that entire
yeah,
program,
I was there for the entire thing. The only bolt out of the blue was COVID.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
after the government announced this, then COVID immediately started, and we had to be. We were thinking the government will give one more year, but there was no such dispensation. So we had to do it during the COVID time, including IT integration and mostly through VCs. But it was a huge churn. And I always believe that during a churn, you will get a lot of opportunities. Even the things that normally the bank would resist. In this name of merger, we have cleaned up a lot of old legacy issues. And that's how the results, even today, you can see the results of the banks. I think every parameter of all these banks has improved. And there is no labor unrest. The people are better off for this merger. The balance sheet is better off. The government, instead of pumping in capital, not a rupee of capital has been invested after this mergers in these three banks, and instead it is getting dividend from the banks. Almost half a trillion rupee, 48,000 crores or something I saw in the newspaper. So that is the kind of dividend that the banks are going to give the government probably this year. So I think it's if your conference halls or your meeting rooms are anything to go by, your focus is on ROE, ROCE, all this ROA. So on all those metrics, I think these mergers have shown the success.
But firstly, it is it would be really challenging to do that entire thing amidst COVID scene. And then apart from the like basic synergies, what else was the strategy behind this merger? Like,
See, I think when I saw when this announcement was made, I was also, observing the reactions. And there is a lot of bitterness and a lot of sadness in the banks that were getting merged. Naturally, if I worked for 25 years in a bank and suddenly you say, no, this logo won't be there, this name won't be there, and you'll be someone else, people were afraid that they would be treated like second grade citizens or something. So I decided, even otherwise, I think without people, it might be a technology company like NSDL is highly tech intensive, but still it is people who run the technology, it is people who matter, and communication. So my strategy was that people first, keep on talking, keep on talking. As you might observe, I talk a lot. So as you keep on talking to people, conveying your message, and be fair and transparent in dealings with people. You should never let down your team, and then they will come up. That was one thing. As I mentioned, balance sheet, cleaning up the balance sheet, strengthening the balance sheet, looking at where are the gaps and filling it in at this time, because you get a lot of help from consultants. Deloitte was doing it for with us, and there was TCS for the IT integration. So you get a lot of experts during that time. So use them properly and actually clean up the whole thing. So we had a lot of workshops, a lot of town hall meetings. I did a lot of travel in the initial 2-3 months before COVID quarter, and addressed a lot many people, the groups of people. The other thing we did was we got about 50 zonal managers from Allahabad Bank, 50 from Indian Bank, put them in a room like this, did a common workshop, because these are Tamil. Basically, mostly South India, Tamil Nadu, Andhra, Karnataka, and this is UP, Jharkhand, West Bengal, and all. And they won't even be able to spell or pronounce each other's names because they're so different. And Hindi was not so popular among the Tamil Nadu people, and these people, really Tamil out of question, but English was probably the. So, by the end of the 3 days, people become, because when you break those barriers, people become friends, and there's much more understanding of the other person's perspective. So, I feel you should, that's why I believe in physical meetings, physical interactions, because whatever we say about work from home and distance learning and all, you still have these classes, isn't it? There's so much you learn in personal interaction. There's so much about body language. There's so much about how you convey. The same thing if I do on VC, I don't think I'll be half as effective. And this is something I believed in. So a lot of workshops, a lot of interaction among people. And we also had, when we recarved the branches and put it, so every branch across the country had if the branch manager was from Indian Bank, the assistant branch manager necessarily was from Allahabad Bank. This is how we, and because both were equal sized, we had those. But a lot of transfers happened. I mean, during COVID also, some people had to move. And and similarly at the zonal level, even at my level, at the corporate center, if there were 40 GMs, we had 20. And promotions also, the first year, irrespective of the relative merit, we just gave half at every level, because to get the buy-in of the other team, I think that worked very well. Even today it is being continued. So my legacy is in, it is proven only after I walk out, and then there is a succession, and then the bank continues to do well, because that's, I think, proven now. It's 1.5 years, and quarter on quarter the bank is doing well. I'm very, glad to see that happen. And technology was the third critical factor. All said and done, without the systems working, not one day you can let the bank down. I mean, you can't take a break for even with this merger. The next day it had to be up and running. There was no chance. So we had to do a lot of work under COVID. TCS said, no, our team won't come to Chennai because COVID, and what happens if something, we are not bound by your critical services rule. So we had to reach out to their top management and get a core team there to work, provided them all that distance and whatever facilities they wanted, but got it done. So exactly on Valentine's Day, 14th February 2020, I think 2021, we got it done. So it took about 16, 18 months, but it was a very smooth thing. Not that there were no problems, lot of eruptions happen, but continuous talking to people and taking care of them and their family during COVID. I think that was one big outreach from the corporate center, where even if someone was ill, I would ring up personally or my EDs would ring up so that you get to them. I believe in this, personal
building that personal
building
connect,
that
cultural bond.
people should feel the belonging to the organization. It's not just money. I mean, we are all old school, so it's not just money that binds people. It's not your perks and PLIs. I think it is whether you feel pride in that organization, you trust your management, and you see that fairness at display.
Some do's and don'ts which you would want to share, like if we have to lead a merger like this, some specific, obviously connecting people, getting them in a room, talking to them about the benefits they will have, but apart from that, something which we should follow and not follow while leading such a big merger.
So I'll start with don'ts. I think that is more
I
interesting.
think that would be helpful.
Do's you can have a long list. Don'ts is don't show bias and don't have bias. First of all, have an open mind. It helped because I came from SBI, Indian Bank. I was there for a year when this merger was announced. So it was okay and easy for me to see both the sides. And I knew there were some merits this side, some this side, but you had to pick up the right man for the right job. So there was a lot of heartburn even, in the beginning, because Indian Bank people would have expected me to be more biased, but that they did so much and they became the anchor bank. But I think they understood. Again, I had a lot many conversations with them saying why we should make this a success for their own sake. I was going to anyway leave after 2 years, but for them it would be a long-term thing. So I think that not having that bias and not showing any prejudice is the first thing a leader should do. Secondly, keep a watch on everything. You can delegate, authority, but you cannot delegate responsibility. Just because a person is very good or shows a lot of interest, if you enter, you by all means delegate, but keep an eye. I think trust but check is what they say. So I think that is very important, because that keeps the person also, and you also get to know how it's going, and you'll be able to step in if necessary. The third is frequent. I think again, keep an eye on the teams, different teams. Don't again, don't criticize in public. If someone makes a mistake, one team, I would call them to the room and then give them a earful, but not in front of the other peers. So these are mostly, again, people related. In terms of technology, I think I should, one mistake I did was, again, because I'm not a technology core person, I probably left it to the teams to do it. They were trying their best, but after a certain time, I saw it was drifting and it was not coming where it needed to come. So then we stepped in and had a overview of it. And I believe that every project management, whether it's technology, even if it is rocket science or NASA work, it all boils down to breaking it into smaller pieces and keep track of whether it's happening on time. And the same thing in NSDL I'm doing. I mean, I've come from banking to capital markets. Everyone said, how do you move like that, So I told them fools rush in where angels fear to tread. But this is something I want to learn, because I didn't handle this in depth. From treasury point of view, I've done. But so this is, I think, gives a great opportunity. And even now I can see the ways of, improving efficiency and improving, because you have domain knowledge people anyway. When you are a CEO, as you rightly will be, then you'll get all the domain knowledge, but you need that sense of being able to judge or being able to make out who is doing what.
Structuring, breaking down into small problems, and then following up on a regular basis with each, even if you don't have that technology knowledge, just structuring and taking that initiative, going to every team and seeing that the work is done on a regular basis is
and also key. Bring in new thoughts, talk to teams. I believe the most of the ideas come from within the team. We look at outside, we do innovations, we bring consultants. By all means, we should do that. But I think most of the ideas that I am getting, even in NSDL today, is from our own teams, because
Exactly. Correct.
they know the issues. So I believe that is innovation is very important. Every day we need to keep on learning new things and introducing new things.
So, talking about digitization now, how has that impacted the banking sector overall on a macro basis? Can you share some thoughts over that?
I think, I worked in public sector banking and we were watching the private sector. So it was always like, the private sector was a bit ahead or whatever it was. But I think this mergers, and even before that, the kind of innovations that have happened in the banking sphere on the digital is really path breaking. Globally, I don't think any country has done so much to digitize the whole processes and also make it so user friendly, so customer friendly. UPI, I was on NPCI board at some point in time, and at that time UPI was being tested about 7 8 years back. And now you see where UPI has taken, it's even being exported to other countries. I think this kind of a tokenization, you name it, account aggregator, these have these have not only helped the people, these have helped the banks reach out to more people. And it is not just the millennials or the tech savvy citizens that this digitization. In fact, digitization is more a success in financial inclusion, because this micro ATMs, the business correspondent model, the kiosk model, how many people have that Jandhan Aadhaar mobile reached, the JAM, Trinity they call. The bank accounts that were opened, there were about 40 crore accounts opened in a period of 1.5 years. And all these were opened again. My soft corner to public sector banks will continue. So 80% or 90% of these accounts were opened by public sector banks. Again, State Bank had a bigger share. But reaching out to those villages, doing that work. And now at that time, the bank said, these will all be zero balance accounts. They won't run. This will just fall off. And it's a waste, useless work. Even we all felt that way, that we are being pushed to do this. But today, those accounts have an average balance of 4,000 rupees. And again, the best part is, more than 50% of these accounts are in the name of women. So I think that is the empowerment that is coming through digitization. But that said, I don't think digitization can replace physical branches or physical service anytime soon. Because after all, even the wealth managers are looking for relationship manager. No, if I'm a HNI, I would have a dedicated relationship
Correct.
manager for me. Why a person when I'm so tech savvy and all that? It's, I think, after health,
Keep that personal
financial security is the most top of mind. So I think that comfort, and especially in villages and in tier 2, tier 3, where people want to see the person, talk to the person, this will continue. But it's a nice jugalbandi, because you need a digital outreach. Even the banks are putting iPads and all in the branches, so that the staff are not bogged down by paperwork, but they open the accounts when they come there. So digitization has made a huge inroads. SBI's own project is there, which many of you would be knowing. It has already crossed a 5 crore mark long back. And they say that the valuation of that particular ecosystem is probably uh, speeding up and reaching the banks.
Absolutely. So, along with digitization, of course, the number of cyber fraud risks are also increasing. So, how are regulatory bodies thinking about this, and what steps have been taken to curb that? Like every day, still, even after being really educated, my parents still are little bit hesitant to make online payments because of the few days back, we received my mom received a KYC message saying that her SBI KYC is pending, and she was going to click on that link, and I was like, okay, this is fraud. How do you deal with, and what are regulatory bodies like doing to curb these risks in the sector?
The more the ultimate depositors or even investors now in the capital markets also, 10 crore is the number now of retail investors. So, and there has been a humongous growth in the recent times. So yes, cybersecurity, not only for the investors, but even for these institutions. NSDL is a critical market infrastructure institution. So it's I mean, it's really the biggest risk if you ask me. But yes, the NCIIPC, it is a government committee which works with all the critical infrastructure institutions to monitor, to sense, and to alert institutions about any cybercrime that is happening. There are international standards to which all these institutions get accredited, and also there is continuous monitoring. And the RBI has the third pillar is this financial awareness. Right, I mean, you must be seeing these advertisements by SEBI and also RBI. RBI कहता है this and that. There is enormous amounts being spent in terms of marketing and outreach to the people to warn them against these kind of phishing or whatever kind of frauds that are being attempted. In the capital markets, we are mandated by SEBI to put aside a portion of our profits for investor awareness programs. I have my relationship and a Delhi head, Mr. Sachin Utreja here. He handles so many investor awareness programs across North India, Delhi, and other states, and in association with the brokers or the banks or depository participants. So it's a continuous work. We have in NSDL itself, we have launched a program which we call Market Ka Ekalavya. It's an online training program for online workshop, 3 hours workshop for students and for anyone who. So this breaks it down into 3 modules about how, what is saving, what is invest, very basic things. Why should you invest? How should you invest? What are the risks? What are the pitfalls? And giving very nice examples, and in all regional languages. Okay. So all languages it is available. It's online with live faculty, and we also insist that people who are participating should keep their videos on and keep interacting. So this is, we give a certification which is co-signed by MADE, Michigan Academy for Developing Entrepreneurs, a US based body. So we have NSDL has tied up with them. So that certification is also given, and now I plan to take it to the self-help groups where a lot of women are members. In there, since it's a regional language, it would be well understood. We can do it in physical mode also. In fact, now I'm here, I would like to tie up with Masters Union to do one such session. I can ask Sachin to take it, because you are doing a lot of outreach. Not that you people need this. I'm sure after seeing your curriculum and your all the inputs I got about the courses here, you won't need it. But when you take it up as a CSR or as your outreach program, this will come in very, very useful. And I request all of you to have a look at it and take it forward. So I feel, it's not just one area. Cybersecurity risk is there. There is a lot of other frauds happening, whether it's cybersecurity or no. There is also the, this phishing, and this money is a very dangerous magnet, and that we should be the very, very careful about it, right?
Correct. So all of us will definitely, would want to be a part of it if it is about creating awareness, providing trainings in different languages. I think, as I told you, we also have this investment funds created. A lot of us are members of those capital market investment funds, wherein we are also learning how to invest, work on these acumens and everything. So we would definitely want to be a part of this. So, going ahead, ma'am, you have won the Best CEO award, and it was for increasing the total income by 32% year-on-year basis, if I'm not wrong. So, can you just tell the challenges you faced over there, and like how did you cope up with them?
So I did not do what I did with an eye on the BFSI prize. It was, as I said, as I explained to you, this was given for the Indian Bank performance in 2021.
Yeah.
So that was the year I left Indian Bank. So it was very nice to get it. And this was all banking sector, BFSI thing, which includes private, public, insurance, everything. So it was
32% growth is a
it's not just, 32% growth was there. But I think they took into account a lot many other criteria, like the top line growth was very important. Growth, without growth, there is no real, there's no sustaining. So that was there, but there was also an improvement in the NIM, which is the net interest margin. That means your interest outgo is limited by changing the liabilities profile of the bank. You have more CASA, you have more current account SB, then your cost of funds comes down. You have, your long term deposit rate, you keep it okay, but short term you keep tweaking. So in Indian bank, it depends on each bank's profile of the liabilities also. So there was a lot of, usually banks means assets and assets means NPAs. So this is how we see, but the liability side is very little focused. Now it's coming because there's a liquidity crunch and credit is growing. Now banks are focusing on the liabilities, but that was one area where we could work and improve the CASA. So the dependence on the bulk deposits, on the high cost deposits came down, and that improved the net interest margin. The other part was asset quality. I always believe that to plug the bucket is first thing. Then you keep on growing, but if it is keeping on leaking, what's the point? The credit monitoring system in banks was, in our bank at least, was revamped maybe 10x, and we had a lot of teams working at recovery, and also first of all not letting the asset slip, continuous monitoring, artificial intelligence, seeing which one will go, and calling before it is due. These are all old fashioned recovery models, but they work. And especially in tier 2, tier 3 cities where you have a major proportion of your borrowers, it makes a lot of difference if you are able to reach out to them before the due date. And so this arresting the slippages, recovering the old outstandings actually brought down the gross NPA level from something like 12.3 on a combined basis, the first balance sheet, the opening balance sheet, to almost 4.5. So within that, I think when I left, it was about 6.5 or so. Now it has come down to 4 or 4.5. And the net NPA, that is after provisioning, is almost like 1.5, 2 now. At that time, it was 2.5, 3. So it's a huge cleanup. So this is what I feel. And after all that, there were lots of murmurs about mergers, about how people were treated, how complaints were coming to the finance ministry and other places. But in Indian Bank, I believe that it was very evident that both the teams were treated equally, and there was really no cause for any major issue anywhere. So that, I think, also helped. And the IT integration. The IT went off like a smooth cakewalk.
How did you use the AI in that? Like you mentioned, like you used AI for credit recoveries and all, right?
Right. So there are these different fintechs. So you collaborate with the fintech. You give them your, the next 6 months data. Then you also see the pattern of that similar cohort. How do they pay? Normally, they pay as soon as they get their salary, or as a salaried loans are relatively less risky. But when it comes to businesses, especially during COVID, right, there was a lot of problem. But the government was also giving them some what they called ESGLS at that time, some emergency loans. So we used a combination of that to see which is the MSME that would be able to use this, which would be able to come out of their problems and actual recovery in time. Otherwise, try to give them a reasonable time to come. But you should act in time to extend that timeline also, and have a proper validation or a justification. So lots of resources were employed on that.
So using technology to understand the behavior of your customer
clients,
to help them, like to work on a follow-up plan for recovery.
Right.
That
The
would be
big
really
customers, you
interesting.
anyway have a simple view. I mean, you have a very
Correct,
clear view.
absolutely.
But the listed companies and
Yeah.
all, but the MSMEs are the main issue. Were the main issue at that time.
Correct.
So that I think continues even today. That is the
And recovering from them would also be a challenge. So if you're saying that you revamped that entire process, I can imagine how much of effort
no,
would have gone.
technology holds the key. I
Correct.
think ultimately you need to get those processes right.
Correct.
And yeah.
So, talking about fintech companies, like many new fintech companies, like Zerodha, Grow, and all have come today. So, how regulated are they, and role of NSDL on their future, and how has NSDL played an important role over there for the fintech?
Yeah, not only, I think this COVID time has really brought in a very revolutionary change in the capital markets. So something that was growing at a normal, pace suddenly broke through, and there has been, yes, I think we should credit the discount brokers with the kind of digital do-it-yourself journeys that they have brought in at that time. And COVID, many people were having the time also to focus, and then probably the wherewithal to invest. So I think a lot of new accounts got opened. In fact, from around 4 crores, it went up to almost 10 crores now. The only issue is how many of these accounts are active. Because and what is the quality of those accounts? Just like those Jandan accounts, which were zero balance accounts, these are probably one stock accounts, many of them. Unless people, now we are working on activating and making them first of all, give them the awareness about how they need to do, and secondly, actually make them transact so that they get the comfort around it. So there are two segments of people who have entered. One is the millennials and the new investors who are careful, who are taking one step at a time. Then there are those who the F&O market and all that, very high risk taking ability. So both these things, I think, regulations wise, whether it is Zerodha, Grow, or anyone, we are the frontline regulators for all these depository participants and the brokers. Very frequent inspections are carried out, very off-site monitoring and surveillance is carried out. There are a lot of alerts that SEBI also looks at, and there is a whole system of monitoring their activities. So you occasionally, not only the brokers, but also the influencers and all on the social media, there's a lot of activity going on, encouraging people to invest. So invest, and till there it's okay, but which company, where, and all that. So that is being also curtailed. There is a huge exercise at SEBI. Every time, there's a huge social media monitoring that keeps happening. And that's why I think the thing is going on quite smoothly. In fact, we have a very continuous interaction with all these firms.
So what you mean is like, as a frontline regulator, get closely connected with the companies, work with them on every regulation.
Yes.
Be closely connected to your customer as well as the fintech companies and work towards the regulations.
Yeah, fintech companies are more like, you mean to say this Zerodha and all when you say fintech companies?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they are into financial services in a very big way.
Correct.
Yeah. So yes, the regulations are given out by SEBI, but they are interpreted by the depositories for these companies and all their issues. Whether India is one market where we have the direct accounts of investors with the depository.
Correct.
This is not the case across the world. And there it is omnibus. The depository, DTCC, and all have only the accounts of the banks or the brokers. That they in turn have the accounts of individuals. Here, the depository is responsible for the custody of each individual account. That's why you get the consolidated account statement from NSDL with all your holdings on one. And then the efficiency of the system is something that is, I think, very impressive. Very recently, India has moved to the T+1 system. January 27th was the ultimate deadline, and all the top five. This was the last batch of 500 companies, which are top of the list. The biggest market capitalization companies all moved to T+1 settlement, and along with them, the foreign portfolio investors. In fact, NSDL handles 99% of the FPI market and all that monitoring around the foreign investment limits and all. So all the work got done over a period of 1 year. In batches, people were moving to T+1, and today T+1 has stabilized. So I think other than China, no other major economy is on T+1, and not even US, UK, Europe, nothing. So I think there is so much efficiency in the system, which also means the investor is safe.
Correct.
Because if SEBI is moving to ASBA like a system for the secondary market, that means your money is not getting pooled with the broker. It is directly going towards a settlement. If you buy today, you are getting your security tomorrow.
Correct.
Previously, it used to be T+5, and in between there could be a lot of leveraging out of it.
Correct.
It was happening earlier. Now more and more SEBI is cutting out all that clutter and reaching out direct to the investor. In fact, if you pledge your shares, the shares will be pledged directly from your account. There will be a lien. It won't move anywhere until the transaction gets done. So much of investor protection is on the mind of the government and SEBI and all the regulatory agencies. So I think investors need to can feel safe, but they need to take their part seriously and not indulge in any, sudden temptations, and keep their part of the bargain clear. Then things work out.
Interesting. So I would like to change gears over here a little bit. So it is a known fact that large gaps persist in representation of men and women in leadership positions in banking industry. So I've read that almost women accounted for less than 2% of financial institutes' chief executive officers and less than 20% of executive board members. So, how was your experience as a woman leader in the financial sector, and what were the challenges you faced personally and professionally?
The numbers what you have given look actually better than what it is, I think. I mean,
This is
at
from
least
a
in the top,
McKinsey
maybe
research
I mean
report,
the sample might be, the thing might be different. Fortune 500 companies, only 4.5%, I think, are board members, and less than 1%, 0.7% women CEOs or
Okay.
top rank. So what is it that is ailing the country? And even in this room, why do I find only two girls here?
Yeah.
Right? What is it that is stopping our people from? I mean, I'm not saying everyone should
Definitely.
attend my
No,
session,
you're
but
right.
the representation is so low everywhere. And in our time and age, when we were working, I think there was there was a lot of there were only 2 or 3 options: IAS, right? Otherwise SBI POs, and maybe banking for women. And SBI and banks were also not were frowned sort of, because transfers. If you become an officer, you have a transfer. So first thing is, stop at the clerical level, let the husband go up, because he is the main breadwinner and all that story. So I think women have come a long way from those days. What I faced a problem, not so much from family. I think it's not that you are blessed with a. I mean, I am blessed with a nice family. There's no doubt about that. But how you handle your interactions with your spouse, with your parents, with your in-laws makes a lot of difference. I mean, if we can be so assertive coming out to you as talking of CEOs and all, why can't we be assertive at home?
Correct.
The first battle is won at home, right? I don't even call a battle, the first understanding. So I used to keep telling Indian Bank people, the girls, that for their promotions and all, encouraging them to tell them that before you get married, you just have this conversation about your career, about no, because for girls there is especially your physiological map and your career map almost go
Correct.
simultaneously, sometimes clash, and so people have to. So I think there is a lot that the woman herself can do. Have a clarity about where, what, when, and all that, and rope in the support. Having so we all were married, we all had children. The children are doing well. There's nothing missing in terms of my working and they not doing well. I think absence also helps a lot many times, because
We
but the
become more
thing is, you
independent.
get a proper support.
Yeah.
In those days we had to, the family was there. Luckily for me, my in-laws were there, or my parents. But it also goes with a lot of give and take. It's not that you will get some robot which will work out everything. People have feelings. So whether we are working or no, I think both men and women need to learn to adjust with the people in the family, in the neighborhood, in the office. So I think women have crossed a lot of things. The other thing I faced was stereotyping, and second guessing. That before I take I'm even considered for a position like in credit, like a branch manager, zonal manager, chief general manager. You almost assume, oh, she has two kids and they are in high school and all. She won't be able to take up this, and they decide. HR decides even before asking you. So I used to have this problem that ask me at least, if I am prepared like the foreign assignment at Los Angeles. It was not even offered that I be what they call India-based officer, because they thought I am in so much thick of things with my parents not being well and all that, that I won't even consider. But then I went and told them that at least you offer, I'll talk at home and come back. So ultimately, I took it and I went. But these are things that second guessing the woman's needs, and I think women need to be again and again. I come back to women because I believe depending on someone else for our thing, giving up is very easy at that stage in life. But you just persist that slight hump, you'll cross, the next hump will come, you'll again cross. The only support you, if you ask me, is your spouse. And that is very, very important. And unless that kind of understanding is there, even in other areas, it will be difficult. So that is, you must have read the book Lenin of Sheryl Sandberg, right? The Google who. So she says that women give up even before they need to give up. If I used to hear Indian Bank, the girl comes and says, "Madam, my marriage is settled. Very good, congrats." So then, what about your career and all? No, this year I won't take promotion. Why? Because it might come in the way of something. If she might have children, so she might have a problem. I mean, even before things happen, you start giving up. I think that giving up portion, especially in salaried people, it's not correct. I would urge the girls to just take that step, get into decision making roles. What helped me in SBI was being a branch manager, leading a small team of 7 or 8 people. It gives you so much confidence, solving customer problems, facing the customer who is shouting at you. All this gives a lot of confidence that, okay, I can manage this. And these skills transfer back to home. You
Right.
can, because you can't slap the customer, you can't talk to him rudely. The same thing, if you practice at home, it will work. I think it's a basic learning both sides. So
Absolutely.
there was a lot of problems being a woman, but I think there were a lot of advantages also. People were very helpful. People, I mean, they think she can't handle anything. So when I was learned driving a car and started driving, people were in the US, people were very surprised. So
But that is also a stereotype I've heard, like women cannot drive. Like, or if it is, someone bangs a car, it would be a lady driver
oh yeah,
outside.
so
Oh,
these
what
are
is
all
this?
very
Again, a
well
stereotype,
entrenched
yeah.
things, but I think it's for us to change
But
that
being more
thing.
assertive in it.
And boys these days, I think, are much more open-minded and
Yeah.
willing to cede, willing to support. And it is in their interest. After all, if after 10 years the wife feels, her potential is wasted and she is not feeling happy about it, it cannot be a happy environment, right? And that will happen if you're focused on career, if you wanted to be something, and because of family responsibilities it didn't happen, that resentment will hit you later. I mean, it should not, I hope it does not, but if you're not keen, if you're more of a, the other hobbies and interests, fine, everyone should have their choice. But I don't believe in giving up. We
Career
also have a
goals.
life, right? The woman, the wife, the mother has a life of her own. Let her take care of that. There's nothing wrong. Right?
True.
Everyone is important, but she is also important. The most important person, I keep telling girls, most important person in your life is you. If you are not there, your life is not there. So first take care of your health, your emotional balance, your mental health, everything. Right?
True.
Oh no, I'm
So
passionate
when
about this subject, so I can
No,
go on
whenever
and
you're
on.
saying this also, I can just recollect like my mom, as I told you, I have been brought up like with working parents always. My mom has been working since childhood, and 7 o'clock she used to go to office in the morning. She used to pack like my bag, everything. all my school dress, my lunch,
All
my
responsibility.
milk, evening milk, my clothes, everything in the bag, keep it in the babysitting,
Correct.
everything come in the evening, pick me up. I could just, relate that story and how much multitasking she used to do even on Sundays. Then she did her MBA also at like in her 30s. And because earlier she did not get the time because of the kids and everything, she was working. So she did her MBA. So weekend she used to study 4 o'clock in the morning. And that entire journey is like makes you really a different person in life. It creates a lot of impact on the kids also. You become more independent in life.
Yeah.
Definitely. So it creates a lot of difference if you have a working mother at home. So you do not depend on your mom ke khana garam karke de do, get it in your plate for you. Like you will
No,
obviously
but that
pick up
is
things.
surprising. Even today, my sons, if I am around, they'll still ask khana garam karo. But they can do it themselves. So
Correct.
that's fine. They are, and they become sensitive to the other gender.
Correct.
So I think
Absolutely.
it happens everywhere. But what you mentioned about all those chores, I'm generalizing. I think there's except that first year of the child where he's an infant and needs the mother's care. I don't see why fathers cannot tend to most of this work.
No,
Right?
even my dad
No,
used
no,
to,
no.
I
I'm
think,
not
equally
talking of your
support.
father.
I'm
I'm
just
just
saying, but
saying. Sorry. That's why I said I'm
no,
generalizing. I'm just talking that this seems to be now. It's not there. I have
correct,
I
absolutely.
see my sons. So I think that was at least at one point in time. In fact, when both me and my husband would come home almost at the same time, and I was working in a farther branch than him, my sister-in-law who used to stay with us, she would keep on it's natural, she was very affectionate, but she would keep on saying, oh, he comes so tired, and as soon as he comes, she'll rush with a cup of tea. So one day I told her, I also work the same thing, and I also come from, so just give me tea, after that I will do everything. So again, I think it's just conveying showing them the
Correct.
thing that, and if they are sensible people, I think they'll get it. So that is important.
I think even like from at home specifically, my dad, if he used to come early from office, he used to automatically keep rice and everything for dinner even before mom comes in, or call me up and say, okay, don't keep it for your mother to come and do it on your own. So it actually makes a lot of difference when you have a working mother at home. Like a lot of people, everyone in the family becomes more independent, takes up more ownership, does things on their own.
But even if the mother is not working, I think she deserves a life, and still children need to. She needs to make sure that they are. Otherwise, tomorrow they won't be able to run a proper family. The wife expects much more than what they have been trained for, right? So we need. I think bringing up boys is more responsibility these days. You need to prepare them for the life after marriage.
So, ma'am, can you share some of the initiatives at NSDL towards promoting financial literacy and equality among women?
Yeah, I think as I'm already mentioned, after health, first thing we also promote health among women, because I believe that there is a lot of negligence around physical health, especially among that age group. You're so caught up in your regular life that you tend to neglect so many things. So I'm trying to focus on that part for all the, and our catchment is like the whole country, the women investors. No, we are trying to reach out to housewives, we are reach out to college students, and there it is gender agnostic. It's not that women, but I would like to have more women involved in this, because financial decisions are very important. And even today, most of the women, we have done a survey. I mean, I've seen a survey by, I think, either BCG or one of these consultants, which says that the financial decisions ultimately are taken by the. If I'm buying a 1 crore diamond, I'll buy. I need not get my husband's view on that. But if I'm buying a 60 lakh apartment, of course, both will probably be involved. But if it is a 60 lakh investment, then I leave it to my husband or my father or my brother or whoever is considered more. So why this, right? And it's also assumed that women cannot take risk. I mean, this I find that most
Stereotype.
atrocious argument, because women have been taking risk all their life.
Correct,
From
absolutely.
eternity. If in these days it's different. Previously, maybe 100 years back, women used to
No
get married and just
hospitals.
put in a different family, like a swim or sink kind of situation, and they did it. So much uncertainty, childbirth.
True.
Who takes that kind of risk? And every day, every time, people are, and you say women are risk averse, and they can't face uncertainty. I don't know this
Stereotypes.
argument.
Okay.
So that I feel women should be able to take risks and be responsible for it. If
Yes,
it goes wrong, you
absolutely.
cannot look around and say, "Oh, you told me, so I took it." This is one thing we need to, own up the responsibility. If you are taking the decision, own up the responsibility. Take measured risks. Don't push on someone else. So I think many things I too learned through practice. My husband would turn around
Absolutely.
and say, "Now that is your decision. Don't tomorrow if something goes wrong, don't tell me." Which is correct.
Which is correct.
So slowly you drop those emotional, the support
True.
crutches and all the crutches. So I think that's very important. And what we are doing is this market Kaikalavya. We are going to take it to all the. I'm trying to target self-help groups, because I don't know whether you are aware, there are at least 40 lakh self-help groups in the country or more. And each of these groups will have 20 members minimum. And these self-help groups are of women, mostly women.
Hmm.
Nothing prohibits men, but mostly somehow it has worked out. And in the South, I saw in Indian Bank, these are the women who first of all start with saving 10 rupees, 15 rupees a week. But then the banks give them loans, because it's a joint and several responsibility. When you have a team, each one works as a monitor for the other, and they do some small business, either trading or vegetables or whatever, or papads, and even mobile repairs. I was more interested in girls learning mobile repairing or vehicle repairing. Why not? Computers.
Absolutely.
So these, if we can get them to start investing a little, today they are into SB and fixed deposit, or maximum RD, and some Kisan Vikas Patra and all that. So if you start making them at least mutual fund, start with a mutual fund, an SIP. Slowly that equity culture will
Absolutely.
come in. So that is the thing. And along with that, the financial awareness about not becoming a scapegoat for frauds,
Correct.
not giving away your OTPs and passwords very easily, not giving your mobile to anyone, password protection. These are small things. And in you do this nukkad nukkad teams and all, go to the villages, and this is something that we are working on right now. We are doing the market Kaikalavya kind of investor awareness programs for mostly in the north and northeast. I think they are doing a lot for army people, army wives, or army soldiers, different demographic segments.
But I also agree, like when I started my CA, like after my 12th standard, the first thing my parents told me that you will be managing the finances of the house, at least from today onwards. Leave the company part and everything. You should know at least the finances of managing
Exactly.
your own house, finances, manage the mutual funds, investments of the house. So from that time only, that time I was like, yeah, why is she pushing all the work on me? I used to feel like that, but then over a period of time, it was like at least
A
I know
learning.
how a very good learning, because you get to understand the return filing, managing the finances, and that is like really important over a period of time, that you are confident to manage your own finances today. So it creates a lot of difference over there.
It does. You have to get your hands dirty to learn anything, and a few
Correct.
mistakes here and there is okay.
Huh? That is there. So, what steps do you think need to be taken by the government and financial institutions to close the gender gap in the financial sector?
So we talked about directorships, and also the when we talk of corporate governance and all the issues centered around that, the presence of women on the boards is very conspicuous by its absence, and skilled women at that, people who know the subject and who can actually
Correct.
contribute to the company is I think probably even lesser. But the issue the government can do, the government already has a mandate that there should be a woman director for all the listed companies, and there should be they have given different timelines. Now it is mandatory. So still some companies
Do not
don't have that representation. There was once, in the Scandinavian countries, you saw there was one, I think Norway, which had a mandate that 40% of the boards should be women, should have 40% of board memberships should be women in every company. So suddenly they couldn't find these women, and then it was called golden skirts policy, because if there was one woman on one company who could be a director, she was on 20 other companies, and she was raking in the the riches. But that is, I think, a start. The mandate is something, and in India, I don't think there's a dearth of talent among
Absolutely.
women, right? There is a, you can get if you look for it. There are enough people working in financial sector itself, and retired people also. So that is not an issue. I think what the government needs to do is make it a, or SEBI, or because listed companies at least, make it a disclosure that we have so many, or we have not been able to do this. Make it naming and shaming. Show the list. Put it on the websites. Put it on SEBI's website. Put it on. And the other thing I found in banks is there was one sort of a initiative by the government, which was called ease of doing, the ease initiative. It included digital for all the public sector banks. There was some kind of a meritocracy ranking on various parameters, including profitability, new business growth, digital inclusion, everything. So I used to tell the finance ministry that you should include gender balance. You say that at the top level, or at the top, DGM and above, how many women are represented. Because at the bottom, at clerical level, you'll have 28%.
Correct.
And
At
up
the
to
top,
for scale 1, 2, you will have maybe 20, 15%. And then it tapers. And to find one GM or lady, I had a lot of difficulty. By the time I retired, there were 5 women GMs in Indian Bank, and 800 branch managers. I just forced them. And the moment they cried, they didn't want to go. But after they reported, within 6 months, the kind of decision making and empowerment which I mentioned earlier, they really enjoyed, at least majority of them, and were prepared to take on those roles. So I think it is the government needs to make it a part of that merit, that
list
criteria,
and calling it
and
out to
just calling
people.
it out. Say that why are you not? Then the policies will evolve.
Correct.
Policies will evolve, and it's not
Once
that
you have that.
childcare is only a woman's responsibility. It is the government also can build, enabling
Creche and everything.
things. So the companies can do.
Correct.
Companies can come together and do. And in SBI, there was a sabbatical that was given, and I was very upset with that kind of policy, because they gave to women
Not men.
2 year sabbatical for women to take care of their in-laws, parents, or the children in the high school, 12th class, 10th class. A lot of women were taking leave at that age. So the management felt that it was good to give. But I was opposing, saying, don't give it only to women, give to men also. Because otherwise,
They
if
also
the
have
husband
to
will
take
say,
the
anyway, you have
responsibility.
sabbatical, now you sit at home and do this, and I don't have such a facility. So later on, I think it was extended. So I think these are nudges, these are signals the organizations need to give to the people. It's okay to look supportive of women for some time. If you have to bring the balance, then you need to put something on one side to bring it back. But at the same time, I think today things are so different. Even in NSDL, I find very good response from women. And men these days, I think, are more aware and evolved. At least my
Yeah, definitely.
my
No,
expert, the
I
boys I
agree
keep
with you.
interacting with. I don't think we can keep on bashing. That we should just take responsibility and say, okay, this is my way, or something. That is my feeling, that girls need to assert themselves. That's all I say.
Definitely. So I'll go ahead with my last question and I'll then open the floor for questions over here. So how do you envision the future of financial services for women specifically? And what role do you think technology is playing in it? Apart from definitely awareness and trainings, what else we can do with technology in financial services?
I think what we mentioned about, first of all, what is the participation of women today? The calculations, the figures, the data analysis. The participation is 14%. Even today in the capital market, I'm talking of capital markets. So I think that's where we start. So how do you make more women interested in the capital market? put some programs around women, make them go to this colleges, make financial understanding a part of the curriculum right from the school level. That is not there right now. I
It's
think
not
it's
there,
coming,
yeah.
because at least the future, you have to stop it somewhere. The future generations should come out with more awareness about these things. And everywhere digital, there is enough for everything. Technology is required. Whether you simulate a game, make it more interesting to deal. We have this in treasury, you have the simulated dealing desks and all, which encourage people to participate. I think there is a lot that technology will bring in. And women in financial, I'm sure if women come in a big way into financial sector, both as employees and as investors, the study says that the GDP would grow by 28% if women's participation increases even by another 10%. So this is the kind of, and India's participation rate of women is falling actually. So that is one thing. I think
Big
I think
concern.
this has to be attacked on two sides. One is encouraging them to do. Secondly, also remove the stereotypes. So it's a bigger problem than we are looking at.
Right.
That women are not part. Unless you feel the financial empowerment, it's not going to sink in as a real assertiveness, or because finance is all said and done, emotions and all apart. Economy, the economics of the home, who
Correct.
brings in and who is really today the housewife's role is not monetized, right? We don't know, and it is
It's
only in
being
absence you'll know,
Yeah.
but in presence you are not counting it. So I think there is outreach that is required. You mentioned that other than awareness, but I think awareness plays a very big role. You need to encourage, and there are women in various sectors. So people like me who are at least at a position where you can make a opinion makers, I think there's a huge role. And for colleges, there's a huge role colleges can play, and together we can do a lot more.
I would definitely want to be a part of this.
Right. So we should be doing a lot.
Yes, definitely. So I would now want to open up the floor for any questions if you all have.
So now the growth is coming because cities, more or less, especially West Gujarat, Maharashtra, some states have more representation, more coverage. When we map the Indian, when you see on the Indian map, now the growth percentage that is much higher in tier 2 and tier 3 towns. It is galloping, especially till maybe 3-4 months back. It was quite active. So this is a direct result of the perceptions. When the stock market is booming, suddenly you will find a lot more people opening accounts and demat accounts. And when something is volatile, they stay back. But that is expected. I think what is changing is technology again, that you can go online and do, and the availability of these apps, mobile apps in regional languages also. Now people are not so much bothered by the English jargon. And that simplification of the whole thing has helped people to come on board. And the work of our own teams, or even the DPs, when you have the zero, and the banks. The banks have been ICICI Securities, HDFC Securities. All these people have been working on the ground with the people to build awareness and open demat accounts simultaneously. So it's going to increase. Only thing is, yes, it should be very. All of us have to have that responsibility, that it is calibrated and suited to the risk of the risk appetite or risk profile of that person. Otherwise, like at one time, forex derivatives in banks went through the roof. During the global financial crisis, everything came home to roost. So exporters took a huge hit in Tamil Nadu and all. So I think everything in measured steps is very good for the country. So our system is that the depository holds the accounts. If if you have a demat account, your security, whatever equity investments or mutual fund you have, if you have dematted that mutual fund also, it will all be lying in your account with NSDL, which is a regulated entity, a hugely highly regulated entity. So the crores of accounts are with these depositories, individual accounts. Whereas in America, DTCC, which is the counterpart of a depository, it has clearing also into it. You can add if I miss something, right, Sachin? So there it is the omnibus system. There the depository, the DTCC doesn't have the direct account of the investor. It comes through Bank of America, it comes to JP Morgan, it comes to Morgan Stanley, it comes to Merrill Lynch, whatever, those brokers or depository participants. Here also you have depository participants. You have ICICI Securities, you have HDFC, Zerodha and all. But they don't have custody of the account. So would you be better off with a institution like NSDL holding it, or would you be better off with it's not just these named institutions. So there are also many brokers in the system, right? So that I think it adds to the safety of the ultimate investor, and our investor profile is also different, right? Not many are highly educated or they are just entering this field. So it's all the more reason why it has to be with a very safe institution. So it was originally T+5 up to 2002 or so, I think. Then it shifted to T+2, and it's been at T+2. So when SEBI started pushing for T+1, everyone felt very scared, and there was also this argument that even bigger countries are not yet into that, so why rush in, kind of. But when you see the logic behind that, it is that there is so much of funds stuck in the pipeline. And the more, this is what Lehman Brothers and all proved to us, right? The more the system holding funds, the more the risk for all the participants. Something can go wrong in that middle one day. Some counterparty can fail. So that risk is there. And ultimately it is the investor holding the potato, right? So that was one thing. Then risk management itself. I mean, the quicker the churn, the better the system, the efficiency of the system. And the investor, if you get your stock, if you bought today and you get it tomorrow, you can leverage it better. You can tomorrow itself, you can do something with it, maybe give it as a margin and take some additional funds. So the leverage increases in the system. So this was the idea. SEBI went about it in a very consultative manner, called all the participants and discussed. Of course, there was a lot of push from SEBI. So they said that, okay, now the system has to be, first of all, enhanced to take this load. And because it will be much faster. Previously, we had maybe 4 hours to complete. Now you'll get only 2 hours. So the whole system, I think the more pressure you put on the time, the better, and you give time to reach there, the better the efficiency. So they started with the the bottom 500 smaller companies first. They said, okay, these will start. When did they start this? Sometime in a year back. And then it went on every month, the next 500, next 500, next 500. So we also got used to the system. This January 27th was when the top 500 companies and almost all the FPIs, the major hurdle was for the foreign portfolio investors, because for them, time difference. They'll have to pre-fund it if they have to reach the next day settlement because of the overnight settlement. But there were a lot of discussions with the SEBI, and they found ways of. SEBI also extended the timeline till 7:30 in the morning for them to do their part of the transaction. So I think it's all. We were very, very crossing our fingers on 27th, on 30th, when the first settlement happened, because it was 2 days actually. On the first day, the T+2 also happened, T+1 also happened, but everything went off very smooth. This shows, that continuous preparation, continuous coordination. This is not just NSDL doing. It is the clearing corporations, it is the banks, it is SEBI, it is the other depository. There is a lot of stock exchanges. There's a lot that goes on. So, a lot of working together towards this. I think it's a case study worth examining. We don't speak enough of our these kind of successes. I think we need to, because this is something very unique, and with the kind of volumes we have, right? Small transactions, because there is absolutely it's almost zero transaction fee now, and people are just trying out their hand with all low volume and low value, high volume transactions are very high. So it's income, right? So income comes from interest income. It also comes from other income. So at that time, the other income components were treasury, one thing, and then there was this insurance, the commissions that you get on all those cross-selling products. You also get a loan fee for processing. Loan processing fee was one of the main. So you pay attention to the cross-selling, give targets for that also, give targets for other income to the branches first thing. Because my feeling is that we obsess too much about the the asset level of banks. Even Forbes says, okay, top 500 bigger banks is the balance sheet size. Instead, if you look at revenues or profitability, it would be probably a totally different. Even in India, the private banks would shed assets on 31st March, because at that time, that means it goes with a lot of first of all, it goes with provisioning. On 31st March, whatever is the balance, on that you need to make provisions. On that you need to make insurance, DICGC insurance premium. So you need to be smart about the balance sheet. So to get something, you need to give up on something. If my asset level doesn't grow by 25%, it's okay. Even if it grows by 15%, is it growing in the right verticals? Is it going in corporate where, am I choosing the right kind of corporates? Am I giving too long loans? Or am I also looking at non-fund based business? This is purely, it won't be appearing on the asset size, but it gives a lot of income. Bank guarantees, LCs, this non-fund based limits, which we call. So there is enough to balance sheet. You all are finance professionals and students, so you'll understand the balance sheet is a very interesting piece of paper. It gives out a lot more opportunities than you care to see. So there are hidden. All you need to get is a good finance professional, I think. And someone who understands the domain also. So top line, the revenue, there are many sources. So you look at each of these. Interest income is one. The other one is the ALM, asset liability management, right? And the interest rate management. The RBI increases or decreases interest rate. RBI was tightening the interest rate regime because they felt that MCLR and all, they brought in a lot of repo linked. They said all the housing loans and retail and MSME should be repo linked. That took away a lot of maneuverability for the banks, because you had to link it to the repo, and it was very transparent how you are adding to the repo. If you are charging 8% for a retail loan, whereas SBI is charging 7%, that means you are that much inefficient, because the base is the same of repo. So these kind of peer level comparisons were coming. So you choose, and I feel we should take risk to get earnings. If you keep away from the slightly, triple B minus kind of companies, this was what was happening. Banks were, what they say, once bitten, twice shy. They had all those NPA problems, and it was not out of the minds. So not touching even the slightly lower rated, but still, I would go more with governance and promoter, his track record, his standard, whether he is rated triple B minus or A. It is a slight variation, but if you know the company, and I worked in SBI in corporate banking for a long time, international banking, corporate lending, and all. So you know the companies. So I could bring in some relationships that way to Indian Bank, and it helped. Apart from that, NPAs, I think, is a wholly different story. We need to be very, very clear and, continuous prodding them. And there was NCLT had just been coming there. So even that is a big boon to banks. That even the fear that you lose your company, which was never there in Indian promoters' mind. They knew that the banks can go to, ages trying to convince them to pay, but nothing would happen because something will get stuck in High Court or DRTU and all those tribunals. So this made a big change. So I think it was very important that we convey the no nonsense attitude very clearly. The bank doesn't follows the policy that it lays down to every customer. And if there is a deviation, you take it to the board and you get it, but no, what should I say, opaque transactions. This was something that we implemented, and most of the credit decisions anyway were being taken on VC. Everything was getting recorded, and people knew that this is there for eternity. This record. So I think it played. The other part is increasing efficiency. The quicker you sanction a loan, the person would be willing to pay 0.5% extra. But you take 2 months and then you ask, there is a time value of money. So I believe that we needed to give some delegation of powers to the zonal level or the regional level, so they would be able to churn out more. And of course, keep monitoring what they are doing, the quality of portfolio. I think I believe in ranking, appreciating the efforts, awarding. So all these gestures do make a lot of difference. So both sides, it's not one at the cost of other. If you want to just increase the balance sheet size, increase loans, get more interest income, but keep dripping away on the NPS, that's no solution. I feel between the two, I would first focus on clogging the leakage, and then blocking the leakage, and then look at the top line. So there are many initiatives you can do. It did. I think first thing is, in the beginning, the recovery was only say 10%, 15%. You saw the huge write-offs, but we should also understand that it started with very, very complex companies. I mean, even they could have done the smaller companies and shown some quick gains, but they chose to do with the very major, the AQR setup of RBI, which Raghuram Rajan gave out that list of the house of debt and all that story, right? So when you pick up those companies, it's not easy. And those, there is too much complexity around those. So slowly unraveling them and doing it took time. But I think the main message of NCLT was that this is clear, that if you cannot shape up, you lose your company. We will bid it, and someone will bid and take it. And it did happen in some major cases. And so, the others fell in line. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had this kind of recovery. Otherwise, government would still be infusing capital into banks.
I guess we'll close the session over here.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, ma'am, for the insightful session. I think we all learned a lot about this banking industry. Overall, got to know a lot of insights. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
We just have one small
So
gift.
my asks are Market Kaikalavya. I would like to tie up with you.
Definitely.
For recruitment, I would like you to look at NSDL. We will work with your
Definitely, ma'am.
HR team
We would
or
love to.
Sudhanshu's
Yeah.
team, Sudhanshu, right? So I would like to, like you said, no? Now I know you, I see you. So we should have some of these bright team
Definitely.
with NSDL also. Thank you.